Welcome back, everyone, to another Book Corner episode. This is episode 2. Today I am joined by
Arnell, of course, as usual. Hey, everybody.
And I'm Roxanne.
Our special guest, Roxy. So today we are talking about The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. Now, I don't know if you guys noticed, but we have kept this book going for about 2 months. That's because summer we figured we're going to take it nice and slow. Don't worry, in September, it's going to be back to once a month.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about what The Outsiders was about. So, who wants to take the ball on this one?
I'll take it.
All right.
The Outsiders is a classic coming-of-age story that explores themes of class conflict, loyalty, and identity. The story is set in the 1960s in a small town in Oklahoma and follows the lives of 2 rival gangs, the Greasers and the Socs.
That one took me a while to learn how to say because I kept saying it in my head, socks, and I was like, it's not socks.
It's Socs. Honestly, it made it easier for me because I listened to the audio version, so I was here.
No, that's what I did too. So until I actually when I was looking at the book, I was like, so should I say socks?
Right? It doesn't look right. Anyways, the Greasers are from the working class, often facing poverty and social ostracism, while the Socs are wealthy, privileged teenagers. The novel is narrated by Ponyboy Curtis, a 14-year-old greaser who struggles to find his place in a world divided by socioeconomic status. Ponyboy, along with his brothers Derry and Soda Pop, interesting names, and their friends Johnny, Dally, 2-Bit, and Steve, constantly face threats and violence from the Socs. So, the tension between the 2 groups escalates when Johnny kills a Soc named Bob in self-defense, forcing him and Ponyboy to go on the run.
All right, so let's go ahead and go over some of the major key characters. We've already got introduced to one, which was Ponyboy Curtis. He is the protagonist and also the narrator of the story. Ponyboy is a little bit different than I think the other greasers, just because he's more sensitive and in tune with his feelings, especially as he's kind of grappling with his self-identity.
But I do feel like he shows his age a lot, especially throughout the beginning of the story when it comes to his conflict with his older brother.
Yes, and the story was very interesting because it does, I feel like, take an actual feeling of a 14-year-old writing a story, because the way he be going about details, I'm like, oh my gosh.
The teen angst.
Angst. As someone who is almost in her 30s. Yeah, it's too much for me. Then we got Johnny Cade, which is Ponyboy's best friend. He comes from an abusive home that we discover. So that kind of makes him shy and kind of socially withdrawn. But he does have his moments of bravery, especially when he defends himself and Johnny from Socs. But of course, that leads to our central conflict, which we'll go over today. And then we got Dallas Dally Winston. He is an interesting guy because he seems so tough and hard on the outside, but then he really has a deep care for Johnny.
I feel like Dally, along with all the other characters, have a lot of layers within their character.
Ogres are like onions. We have layers. Sorry. Then we got Derry Curtis. This is Ponyboy's oldest brother, who he's kind of like the guardian of his family, especially because he's really strict on his brothers, especially Ponyboy, because, if they have any conflict in their family or something happens to any of the boys, that they can get split up and go sent to separate homes, which is what they try super hard to avoid. Then we got Soda Pop Curtis. This is the middle brother. He's kind of like he's like the gum
peacemaker.
Yeah, he's like the gum that keeps the family together.
He's the glue that keeps them together.
Yeah. Exactly. And he's got his own backstory about with, a girl and stuff, which it really makes him, I don't know, I think out of all the characters, he was definitely the more one I can relate with. then we got the 2-Bit Matthews. He's a joker of the group, and he really loves the switchblades. We got Steve Randall, who's Soda Pop's best friend, who he's skilled with cards. He can be tough and he teases Ponyboy, but still a brother, I think, to Ponyboy. And then we got Cherry Valance. She's a social girl who befriends Ponyboy and Johnny. And she's kind of like showing the other side of what the socials are about and shows that they also do have some difficulty. I mean, it was really giving me Pretty in Pink, to be honest. Bob Sheldon, he's the Soch who was killed by Johnny. And his death was like a huge turning point, I thought, for the rest of the novel, especially for a lot of the socialists themselves. They were like, why are we doing this like violence? Like, what's the point of why we're doing this?
Yeah, and everybody's just following behind everyone. Like, there was a whole bunch of pack mentality going on in this book.
Yep. And I think that's pretty much for the key characters, right?
Yeah.
All right. Let's do our hot takes on characters. Who's got an opinion? Because I have plenty.
Of course. Roxy, how about you go first?
Well, to cover the book, okay? When I started reading, the first feel that I got for the book was, this is the movie Grease. That's Grease 1 with John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John. Mm-hmm. That's the one that I got. Then, for me, I still can't believe that going through this book, they were teens.
Why did you feel that way?
Because all the characters, especially the main characters, that's Johnny and Ponyboy, what they went through, some of the areas in the book, I was like, wait, it's this 14, and I think Johnny was the youngest. I said, this sounds like someone who is at 18 years old. And then in certain areas in the book, they're at like maybe 10, 12 years in that range. Okay? Mm-hmm. But my favorite character was Ponyboy.
Really? Ponyboy is your favorite?
Yep. Because sometimes it feels like he's grown up and then all of a sudden he's back a baby when he's dealing with his older brother.
That is true.
Yep.
He was definitely 14 going on 40.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yep. He's like,
yeah, so that was my take.
He's like, I want to be free, Dad.
He's definitely one of those kids that, I mean, we can all relate to this, where when we're young, we're like, oh, I want to be an adult so bad. Yes. Then you have to get into adulthood and you're like, no, I want to be a kid again.
This isn't what I signed up for.
Yeah, we get placed in a situation where we have to be an adult, and then we can't manage it. We come back to the age that we are.
It's funny that you say this, because Ponyboy was literally my least favorite until the end of the book.
Yeah.
It was just giving whiny child.
Yes, that was what I was saying. That was what. But then when he
definitely was not. He was in like his own cloud, basically, and like what he felt was reality was shaping his view of other people, and he was kind of projecting that on everyone.
Well, remember, that is what the book is about, and we see why I said he was my favorite. Okay, is all the growth that he went through, and you can see it in the end. That's why I
love
said
a character growth.
Yes,
we do.
Yep, that's why I said he was my favorite. But for someone to spoon over, it was the older brother.
Listen, he was definitely my favorite.
Yes.
All right. So Arnell's favorite is Derry. Why is Derry your favorite?
Honestly, I just saw a lot of myself in Derry as like an older sibling having to take care of their siblings and kind of step into that adult world very quickly. As soon as his parents died, his childhood ended. Like all his dreams, all his plans, because he was supposed to play football and he was supposed to have a great career doing that, and now he's some little hoodlum.
Yeah.
Because those are his friends now, and he can't get out of this greaser mentality because you're kind of a product of your environment. And I think that he had a lot of character growth as well in his own way, because he was definitely this very rigid person. And then as time went on, things happened. We're not going to get into too many spoilers, but he was able to kind of soften up and show his vulnerable side towards his brother, and was able to bridge the gap where they could foster a nice relationship at the end. It was very beautiful. I love that.
Yep.
I think for me it was Soda Pop. Okay, not gonna lie, Derry was like my top one, but then if I really think about which character I most like had a connection with, was probably Soda Pop, and I think that's just because I'm used to playing the mediator a lot in my life. So that might be why I also connect with him, but I don't know. I think I understand his struggles the most, even though I'm not a middle child. Sometimes I feel like the middle child though.
Yep.
Always got to play mediator for everyone. He was just someone who I just like was instantly like connected with. I think he was just so real too. Like he was just so real with both Ponyboy and Derry, and those two, like they hit their emotions so much, but like Soda Pop like wore his on the outside. He was not afraid to tell people what, but then he wasn't very honest about his own feelings at the same time. So he cares so much for other people, but then he doesn't care about himself. And that was kind of like, I like to see his character growth, especially towards the end, because he's starting to be like, no, this is not okay. I'm not happy. I'm sad. Like he's actually expressing himself, because when it was revealed that his girlfriend, that he was going to get married, he broke out with her because just couldn't mesh that part of his life. And so he was actually really hurt by that. But then kind of held himself back, and then he finally just like let it go. And I was like, okay, that is me. That is, I do feel like he was
self-abandoning a lot.
Yes.
In order to keep the peace. And that is not always, well, it's never a good thing, actually.
No.
Like, don't abandon yourself.
All right, guys, thanks for joining us today for part 1 of the book The Outsiders. And part 2, please look forward to us talking more about the themes and the conflicts that we saw throughout the novel, as well as we're going to post some questions towards you, the audience, that we would love to hear your opinion on, because, just hearing our opinion only goes so far. We would love to hear yours, because I love other perspectives. I don't know about you guys. All right, thanks for joining us today. I'm Ro.
I'm Arnell.
And I'm Roxanne.
See you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.